Hello everyone and welcome back. This is our final video on FlappyBird, or in my case, Flappy Glider. So, last time we left off, we were nearing the completion of the actual cloning. There's a couple things left that we have to do here, along with some cleanup here with making sure our game over works, our high score functioning, and the communication between our different sprites here. So, let's begin with that. The first thing I want to do is wrap up the obstacles since we finished about midway through here. So we have this part right here. We have it basically going all the way to the right, choosing a random costume, showing up, gliding over to the left, and once it's done traveling, we're adding one and deleting the clone. Fairly simple stuff, but there's different scenarios that can occur. You guys might have seen earlier that my code was actually it was actually having the clones continue to be spawned over and over and over again. That's because we don't have anything that's listening for the game over message here inside of our, obstacles section here. It doesn't know what to do with it. So we need to actually tell the clones what to do when they hear this message. When I receive game over. So even though it doesn't say when I start as a clone, clones can still hear the global messages that are being shouted around all over the place. In this scenario, there's two things that we want to do. First thing is going to affect anybody listening to this, not just the clones. This will affect the main body too. The first thing it'll do is when I receive game over, instead of deleting the clone, we're going to stop other scripts in this sprite. So if it was a clone, it's stopping this movement stuff. Actually, to make it stop even more, prevent it from just keeping going on, going to the end, we're going to stop all the scripts in sprite. We're going to move 0. So if it was in the middle of gliding, as an example, it'll stop moving. And from there, we are going to delete the clone. So to break this down, there's two scenarios for this that this thing can affect. It's going to affect the main body by stopping this forever loop that's constantly spawning clones. It's going to stop that. It's also going to stop this when I start as a clone script. Where it's at, it's going to halt it. This move 0 is going to stop any clones that are gliding at the moment when the stop command is shouted out. And then this delete this clone command is going to delete it, so that way, instead of being stuck here, it's just going to straight up gone. We're going to test this right now. I'm going to start. And I'm going to wait, hit this object, boom, everything stops. See that there's no more clones, nothing. That's pretty much all we have to do to wrap up here for our obstacles. Very, very simple. In our button, because it's the game over, we want our button to show back up again so we can restart this whole process. All we're going to do is we're going to actually wait a little bit. We're still going to receive that message. Don't get me wrong. We're going to still receive that message, but we're going to wait a second before making this guy change his costume. Let's retry. And then showing up. When it does show up, it's going to have the same properties as before. It will just look slightly different. It's going to show up. You can click on it. it'll go back to game start. The button's done. Our flappy glider is the only one that we have to really manipulate here. And again, this is just simply done as well. All we have to do is make sure that he disappears after he broadcasts. You know, before or after, either one works. So I'm going to do hide after he broadcasts. So that should clear things up. Boom. And there it is. Then we click retry. Game restarts. We have the basics of the game done now. Oh, but look at this. Something weird is going on. Let's take a look back at our code. You can see that our obstacles aren't actually showing up as they're supposed to be. So we're going to look in here. Oh. Well, why don't you see this? Forever. Critical on myself. Wait. You can see that there's a little bit of a bug here. Watch what happens if I click on this go. Oh, that's strange. As you can see here, we have a little bit of a logic bug. So, the difference between syntax bugs and logic bugs is that logic bugs occur whenever you have an idea that doesn't quite work the way you expect it to. In this scenario, we want our clones to actually start appearing when the game starts, but you see here that we have it attached to the wrong event. So to fix that, we're going to just take this out. We don't even need to take out the whole thing. We just need to hide, because we still need this part. Instead, we need to make sure that this is listening for the right sequence. That is, when I receive, game start. With that, that should fix things. Get hit, game over, go. Shouldn't be seeing, oh, that's because I clicked the wrong button there, actually. Shoop. Click the button, retry, there we go. We're pretty close to the end here. One thing that we might want to add is the actual sound effects. Sound effects go a long way of actually adding a bit of depth to a game. So we're going to go ahead and actually start including sounds in this project. I'll go through the sound section and teach you guys all about it. We're going to start with the button first, because when we click on this button, it doesn't seem like we get much response out of it. One way to really add some stuff to that would be to add a sound effect, like this pop one. Yeah, that sounds like a good sound effect for a button. For a first go with sounds, all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a sound effect whenever it actually gets tapped. I'm going to play the sound effect until done, which is different from this one. If I just did this one, it'll play the sound effect, but it'll keep going. It'll hide everything, and then before the end of the sound, the game will start playing. With this, it's going to play the sound effect until it's done, then it's going to hide, and then broadcast. With a short sound effect, it's not going to be very noticeable, but for a longer one, it can be very noticeable. Okay, that's pretty good. I like the sound effect. Some additional sound effects that we're going to want to do as well is things like colliding with obstacles. The easiest spot to do that is down here at the bottom when we actually make contact with it. We are going to actually want to grab some more sounds other than just this pop sound effect. Most sprites will start with the pop sound effect by default, but you can add additional ones. I'm going to add in one from the library. So you can record your own sounds. I know some of you guys already know how to do that. You can get one from Surprise, or you can upload an MP3 file. I'm just going to choose one from the library to keep it simple. And I'm going to go with one that is short and sweet. I'm going to go through the different sections to describe it. They are, for the most part, fairly obvious what they do. So animals is all the animal-related sounds that you can get. Effects are like sound effects. So very quick, one note, it does one thing, and it keeps going on. The loops is things like musical loops. If you want background music that will keep going forever and ever and ever. We'll be adding some loop sound effects shortly, actually. Notes are just a single note, so you can actually listen to any single note or any single sound in here by hovering over this little play option, like so. Percussion, this is anything related to like a percussion-based instrument. So think drums, cymbals, things like that. Space is all the space-themed sound effects. Sports are all the sports-based ones. Voice, anything including a human voice. And wacky is like cartoon sound effects. Like so. Alright, so I'm just going to grab a simple note. I like that one. That's a pretty good sound effect for when you die. So I'm going to add that one. We're going to play the D trombone until done. Then we're going to broadcast that game over. Actually, we should do it in verse. And there's a reason for this. We want things to sync up whenever we can. Alright. So you can see that things don't look quite right. We're going to actually sync this up so that everything matches up to the timing when this trombone ends. We can look at our trombone. We have 0.79 seconds. So what I'm going to do is, in here, this button, if you remember this thing shows up at 1 second, I'm actually going to modify this. 0.79. And under our obstacles, when we go to delete this clone, I might actually want to make it pause too, so you can see where you died at. .79. And finally, we're going to get 0.79 here too for swaps. Now, if we did this all correct, everything should sync up to that trombone. Just like that. Perfect. Alright, we're getting pretty close here. There is one last thing I wanted to show you guys, and it's something that we were going to want to fix. So, this doesn't look quite right, right you guys? The main character shouldn't just be able to fall and hit the ground and be okay. So, what I want you guys to do is play your game, have your character fall from over here to down here, and see where he ends up in the Y position. My character ends up at negative 197 or so. This is going to be important because I'm going to actually want to check each time in here to see if I've actually gotten to the point where I've fallen off. And this is going to bring us into our other Boolean operation. Last time we talked about and. Today we're going to be talking about or. I'm going to grab this out and I'm going to talk about this for a second. Or statements allows us to check to see if either one thing or the other is true. Think of it like this. I'm trying to come up with a good example here. Because it's not like there's a clear difference between what or does in our human language and what it does in programming terms. In real life, when we talk about or, we're thinking about things like decisions. You can either do this thing or this thing. You can either have cake or you can have pie. One or the other. In programming terms, that is not how or works at all. Or is saying, is this thing true? Or is this thing true? And it doesn't sound too different, but the idea here is if either of those two things it's checking is true, the whole thing is considered to be true. So an example that this kind of or is used for is if it is raining or if it is snowing, we are going to be bringing a jacket along. In either scenario, raining or snowing, we do need to layer up. So it's not necessarily like a decision. We're not saying you can have it either be raining or it's snowing, one or the other. We're saying, is it snowing right now? Or, yeah, if it is raining or snowing, either of those scenarios, if either of those is true, we are going to want to bring our jacket. This is that kind of or. So we're going to actually modify this part of our statement right here. Repeat until touching obstacles, or if our character, whose height is less than that number that we were looking at before. So this is minus 197 here. So I want to say if it's less than 190, or negative 190 specifically. Under the motion section, you can actually have these two guys right here. X position, Y position, direction. And this is a live readout of where they're currently at on screen at this point. We're saying repeat until we're hitting the obstacle or our Y position falls to the point where we've hit the ground. Either scenario, we're going to lose. Just like that. And those are the main things that we're going to need in this game, guys. We've pretty much finished the whole game. But there's one last thing. You guys might have noticed it. We have our score and a high score. When we get here, we're going to want to update our high score only if the actual score is greater than our high score. And this can be done at the end of our player right over here. If we're going to need this less than, or actually we're going to want it greater than, if our current score is greater than high score, then we're going to set our high score to our score. Simple as that. So this will make it so that way our high score system actually works. Oops, I should actually try to avoid it. 2. And I'll get the 3. My high score is updated. And then when I retry, we still have our high score, you can see. If I hit this, our high score still stays at 3. That's the game, you guys. If we want to add any musical loops that go on during this program, we're going to want to do that in our background, right over here actually. To do it, it's fairly simple. We're going to go down to our Sounds tab. We are going to play the Sound tab. Play sound. And we want the sound to actually come in when the game actually starts, to be able to swap over nice and clean. To do that, we're going to want to use clear sound effects, and then play. Wait until done. Actually, we're going to want this. Stop all sounds. Play sound. Stop sound. Play sound. If we do it just like this, it's going to play the loop once, which isn't quite what we want it to do. We're going to want to make sure that this thing is going on forever. Forever. And forever. And just to be doubly sure, we're also going to want to make sure that when it does the swap, it actually stops any of the other background loops to keep on going. Because you can stop the sounds, but the loops will keep going. So if you don't clear them, you're going to get a cacophony of sounds. And here, we're going to want to get the stop all. You want to set this to stop other scripts and sprite. And just to be done with it, actually I'm going to need one over here too. This one we don't have to worry about stopping all the other sounds because we're not going to come back here. Grab some loops. I'll turn this down a little bit. There we go. That's pretty good. So that'll be my intro. I'm going to have my main game. It should be more energetic because we're playing the game. This one's good. And finally, our last one for game over. pretty good. This one's good too. I like it. Alright. Once we have everything, we can go back over to here. To our code. And just set up our music loops. Dance funky. Video game. And chill. And that should be everything. If you give your game a shot now, it's like a fully complete game. Alright. And that's my game, you guys. So, for the next half hour of your lab, spend some extra time customizing out your characters, adding any extra obstacles you want to do, or manipulating the actual physics for your game if you're not happy with how quickly your characters are going up and down, or anything like that. Another idea that you guys can work on too is if you have a character that is like a bird as an example, instead of just going tilting up and down, you can have multiple costumes that you can swap between, like flapping its wings as an example. I hope this helps you guys out, and I'll see you guys next time. Make sure that you work on your customizations during the second half, so that way you have some truly unique projects when you come in to present next week. I'll see you guys next time.